Welcome to the Connections Chat podcast, where we talk about all things mental health. We believe that connecting with others through honest conversation is our greatest tool in breaking down the stigma that is often associated with mental illness. My name is Lauren Sepulvedor, and today we're going to be having one of those conversations. Thank you for listening. Welcome to this week of Connections Chat, everybody. This week I have Javeria here with me. Hey, Javeria. Hey. How's it going?
Good.
Javeria Yousuf, she is an LPC associate, and she recently started at Connections Wellness Group, and she's one of our program therapists. So we've met through that side of Connections, but I'll read her introduction real quick. She's a PhD IOP program therapist for general mental health for adults at Connections Wellness Group in Denton, Texas. Javeria has experience working with adolescents and adults in individual and group settings. And being early in her career, which we're going to talk about today, she's passionate about building on her knowledge and experience to best serve as an effective and compassionate clinician. So since she has graduated somewhat recently, today we were going to talk about being a new professional in the field and navigating that. So I would love to start with your story and with what inspired you to become a counselor in the first place.
Ooh. Thanks, Lauren, by the way, for having me here today. Really cool thing. That's a really good question. I think it's so different for each person. For me, I specifically remember like sometime in high school, I was like, I used to want to be a doctor. That whole thing kind of like, went somewhere else. But I think every person has like their own like background and their own reason to come into the field. Mine, I think the multicultural aspect of like how I was raised and then like the society and like growing up in kind of a multicultural household was a big factor in wanting to be in the mental health field, really encouraging it for like the population that I grew up in, and then also just bridging the gap kind of for both cultures. I think that was a really motivating factor for me.
Yeah. And you went to Texas Women's University, which I'm at right now. So I know that we've really clicked and talked about that because when you know the struggle, and you've been through the exact same program that I'm in right now. Yeah. So when did you graduate from Texas Women's?
I graduated last year. May 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you started at Connections Wellness Group right after graduating. So I would love to hear about that journey and like maybe some things that surprised you or you didn't expect whenever you graduated and became a real counselor working in the field.
Ooh, definitely. So after I graduated, I took some months off. I took the NCE after I graduated. Studying for that was hilarious. It was standardized testing,
Send help. I'm studying. I'm going to be taking it this fall, so we can chat after or during the episode, but I'm going to need all the help you can give.
Dude, yeah. Hit me up. No problem. I have the book and everything. We can definitely get together on that. But after I did that, I definitely, it's been really good having the experience at school. I think our program does a really good job of preparing us for the exam and then also for like being in the field. There's definitely, the other thing is during my internship at TW or during my internship, like my that year that we do internship, like practicum. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I did mine at a PhD IOP as well. And I think that was really cool to get that experience while I was in school. Because my supervisors and my professors were very helpful in kind of, because when you think of counseling, you think of like individual setting. And PhD IOP is kind of not in the scenario at all, but it's such a big part of what we do in mental health. And it's a very real part of, because the way that we have our stuff set up is sometimes, folks will come from inpatient and then they come to PhD IOP and then continuing care is individual therapy. Mm-hmm. But really sometimes we forget that there's PhD IOP. And I think it was really great for me to be able to do PhD IOP while I was doing school. Mm-hmm. Because a couple of my professors also had a lot of experience in that. And so they were able to really guide me and really help me in that. However, after you graduate and kind of, become your own, you learn a lot about your own techniques. I learned a lot about like the way that I show up in the room. You and I have talked about, I think you align with person-centered as well, as did I. But being in a place where CBT, DBT, and those kind of modalities are used more because it is, it's PHP, IOP, it's more acute, the setting. It was very interesting learning how I wanted to enmesh those two sort of.
Yeah.
And it's been something that I still work on. I think that's what comes with becoming more seasoned as you go, as you learn the techniques and you learn the styles. But I think the biggest thing that like school taught me and that I do use every single day is really just like how you show up in the room. It's so important to like be really authentic to yourself. And I think that really helps, and your clients really do see, like, if you're, like, kind of putting something on versus, like, if you are really being authentic to yourself. And I know they preach the crap out of that in school. And so, and it's very true.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a little bit of both.
I really like that you address that it can take time because even though they do talk about that in school, at the beginning of grad school, you're learning everything you can't do. And Katie and I, one of the interns at Connections, we've talked about this a lot of, okay, how can we show up in the room? What can we do? And when you're an intern, you're figuring that out. You still don't have it all figured out, but starting to get in the pace of that. And then once you graduate, really trying to be authentic in the room and being that helping counselor and being ethical and all of those things, but also being yourself, because you have an amazing personality and you're so easy to talk to. And
you're really sweet.
You can be a little sarcastic and a little dry sometimes. And some people may not get that, but you are able to do that in a way that conveys really well. And if I was like in my first semester internship, I'd be like, wait, you can do that. But that's an amazing thing about seeing all of the different therapists I've been with is that you can still let your personality shine through, but you still have to kind of balance both of those roles and walk on that line.
Yeah, I think your personality shining through is such an important part of being in the room, honestly. I think that's the relatable part of us. That's the empathetic part of us, is like really like being able to be there, be vulnerable with them, kind of like, like there's also like a relatability that comes from just being yourself in the room. So yeah, it is a really important part. It's a really big part. And I will say, like, when I first started, like, kind of adjusting into the role, like I did find myself having a moment, like I would leave the room, and I think what was important for me to realize was if I'm leaving the room and I'm feeling a little bit drained, or I'm feeling a little bit like something was taken, and like if I'm feeling really tired, then I need to work harder on understanding what's going on for me in the room. And like, am I being as true to myself? Am I being as authentic as possible in the room?
That's a really good point, because if you're being yourself, it's not taking as much energy and you're not having to check yourself as much. You're just being authentic in the room, even though it does take time. Yeah. But I really like that because it shows that there's more than one kind of counselor too. Like in our minds, or as we're going through a program, we may think, okay, counselors have to be super sympathetic, super kind, maybe a little quiet and all of these things. But it's like there's so many different kinds of people out there. Different counselors and different personalities are going to work for different people. And if you feel like, and I'm talking to myself too as I'm like figuring all this out, but if you feel like you have to be one kind of person, there's different counselors for everybody, and that's not really being true to yourself.
Yeah, I think it's like doing a disservice sometimes to our clients, actually. Like if we kind of put on something else for their sake, I think it gives them a chance to really like, kind of bond and empathize. Like they get a chance to really experience someone who is being really real with them,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that is a big part of like counseling, and a big part of what I've realized and what I've learned is like just how you show up in the room and how true you are to yourself.
Yeah, because there's definitely more than one kind of counselor. Like Jesse's that has been on an episode prior, and that I know you're close with, and you guys talk together in the bullpen all the time and joke around. Both of you have such a funny sense of humor, and I'm not like that, but to also learn to
You're
be more
funny?
myself. I'm not funny the way y'all are funny.
Lord. It's okay. You're starting with me next week.
Yes. Yeah. I'm at internship at Connections Wellness Group for all the listeners, which I've shared before. And I get to be with Javeria in the fall. So starting next week, I'm on my little hiatus from grad school, which.
As you should.
Yes. Which
Take a
I
break.
talked about. If you listen to the grad school episode with Deja, we're both like, we are burnt out. We're done. So I'm on my little break, but I'm so excited to get to witness your therapy style and to learn from you. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Yay. Yeah, I'm really excited about that because I think there's not a whole lot of people that I've met come into a PHP IOP setting that are person-centered. I think you're like the first person that I've come across that really like is doing it at a PHP IOP and is person-centered.
And like you said, it comes with its struggles. And that's something that we can go back to actually, because you were talking about having that PHP and IOP experience in your internship. And I've heard from other therapists that that's a great way to do it, because if you get accustomed to that level of acuity and you can handle that, you can handle anything, you know?
Oh, yeah. And I think the great part of having done that, okay, so I did my internship during COVID. So I didn't have a whole lot of like all the practices were kind of closed. Everyone was doing telehealth if they were doing it. It was, my internship stuff started June 2020. So it was really peak time for COVID. But I think the benefit of also doing a PHP IOP internship, which is so exciting you get to do, is that there's the group aspect that you get to see and the group aspect that you get to like practice on, but there's also, you are always free to pull out, clients individually and meet with them. And during their time there, like if they're processing with me or if they're doing their psychoed with me, and then they get to have this like a really cool relationship with you as the intern in there and having this individualized experience, like it's adding more to their time there. And it's also, you get to get a very dynamic sense of like, this is what group looks like and this is what individual looks like. And this is the relationship that you have with the clients in group versus when you're an individual, because it does shift. Yeah.
And being a program therapist, you're balancing a lot, right? Like these are patients that are in here for 6 to 8 weeks, and you have a different rotation of patients coming in all the time. So what has that been like, learning to balance that role and navigating that after graduating?
Yeah, it's been really cool. I did start with adolescents, by the way. I recently transitioned to adults, so drastically different populations. I worked with 15 to 18-year-olds, and I did group for them. I was a program therapist for the adolescents, and then I just recently transitioned to the adults. Speaking from like kind of both, honestly, because it is an open group, like there are different personalities filtering through all the time, different like relationships build in the group. And you also kind of see that the dynamic change, like over time a lot. It really just depends on the way that honestly, like the facilitation of it is really important. Like if there's a really, different personality and the group, like someone's discharged and then there's like a new personality who's maybe softer or more strong, it's really about how they're kind of like integrated in the group. So that's been really cool to like also learn.
I'm also partially asking for selfish reasons, just because as an intern and thinking about what kind of role I want to do after graduation, like being with you guys twice a week and seeing everything that you do, I'm trying to be confident, but I'm also like, how do you guys do this? Like it is so much to balance and it's just a lot. These are people that are having a higher level of acuity and needing that care. And it just seems like a lot to balance.
Yeah. Really, I think I really try to be as present as possible for those 4 hours that we're in group. Very like present, very, very like, actively listening, literally our job. But like really doing what needs to be done in those 4 hours. I think it's really important to enjoy the people that you're working with. And, shout out to all the people that, I'm close to and I enjoy working with. And also Nicole, who is a great boss.
Yes.
Great boss. Yes. And so it really helps having great people around you. Also, like outside of work, like making sure that you have like a support system really set up for you, making sure you know how to like decompress and de-stress when you go home. There have been times where like, sometimes, there's been like a couple of really like, emotional cases or whatever. We're human. We're in this field for a reason. And so it's only natural for like that to kind of linger sometimes. But like being able to, give yourself space, allow yourself to feel it. That was a really big part of me when I first, like a part of like what I was learning and I was like, figuring out is how to really compartmentalize in the best way that works for me, because it looks different for everyone. It looks different for each therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of having a great support system, I recently found out that you launched an intern support group. I have the flyer here, so I would love to hear more about that group.
Yeah. Oh my God. So shout out Jesse. He's been on this podcast before, and he's a very, very smart person, and also funny. He'll probably hear. Okay, it's fine. He can know. It's fine. Yes, so him and I, we started this intern support group, and it kind of has to go with this conversation that we're doing today. Me being so new, like I just graduated, and so I think it's really important for when I was in school and even now, I think it's because I am so close to y'all, y'all are just like about to graduate and stuff like that. That like connection of like connection.
Connections Wellness Group, shout out.
Of like understanding that like being at the beginning of your career, or even like Jesse's more seasoned than I am, but like, us kind of being at that stage and y'all like being towards the end of y'all's internship or in school, it's so important for you guys to like have that support and encouragement, really like learn from each other's experiences, like know that there is, what you're feeling right now, everyone has felt it in some way. It's supposed to be a very validating and safe and warm kind of a group. And so we're really excited. It's really going to be like, led by y'all, like whatever y'all want to bring to the table is what we would talk about. And it's really cool because Jesse's background is in social work and mine's is LPC. And so we'll have two different perspectives in the room for, social work interns and for LPC interns. And so, yeah, we're both like really, really excited about it. We're both really pumped.
That's awesome. Well, first of all, thank you for launching this program, because I'm going to be a direct benefit of this, getting to hang out with you guys and having a designated time for that.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that. But also just for having such a heart for giving back and wanting to help the next round of therapists that are about to graduate, because you know what it's like. So you're giving back and trying to be a mentor in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks.
I'm excited. I'll definitely be attending those meetings. And going off of helping interns and giving back to the next group of people that are going to become therapists, even though you went to a great program, I'm in a great program at Texas Women's, you can't learn everything in school, right? So if you had to give a message to interns or those that are in school, want to become counselors, of things that maybe you didn't learn in school or didn't expect and surprised you, like what would you share?
I think intuition. I think like trusting your gut, and like if we've chosen to be in this field, we've chosen to be in this field for a reason, I think. And so, recognizing that there will be times where you feel stumped, or you feel like imposter syndrome, or you feel like maybe you could have done better, like leaving the room. But just kind of recognizing that you being there every single day and providing that space for them to feel unconditional acceptance and the unconditional positive regard that, you and I learn about always.
Shout out Rogers.
Yeah, like that's huge.
Yeah.
And that's really a lot of what matters. I know all the professors have taught us that, but I think that's like one of the biggest things that I would encourage people that are like trying to get in the field, or, well, people that are getting in the field, I'd give different advice. But like people that are like just coming out, like interns coming into the field, I think that's a really big thing to like recognize. We can always learn. There's textbooks, there's books, there's websites, there's everything. And by all means, like that is definitely something that's necessary. I just think also having that human piece and that human feel to being in the room, and not just being very, textbook and very educational and stuff like that, that goes a very, very long way because we are in such a people field. We're in such a humanistic field.
Yeah.
And so approaching it in that way, I think has been really cool for me.
I love that. And you talking about intuition kind of ties in with confidence for me, or the way that you were saying it made me think of that. Because whenever I was in practicum, all of us were saying, well, I'm not that confident. Like, I don't know if I'm doing that great whenever we were showing our videos. And Dr. Yimmy, I don't know if you had her at Texas Women's, but she'd get mad at us whenever she was like, be confident. She was like, you guys are doing amazing. You're doing great. You're learning so much. And that ties in with that intuition of you have the training to get here. Like, they're not just throwing you in a room. Like, you had to get accepted in the program. You had to do so much training and just trusting your gut and that you're in the field for a reason and that you're going to be able to help and change people's lives.
Yeah, that's huge. I will say also, adding on to that, like, I have a supervisor right now, by the way. Like, I think it's so important that we go through our practicum and internship semesters because of literally what you just said. That is so huge, like that you're not being thrown into it. Because no matter, like, your intuition really just comes from you, but like you being encouraged and you being validated and you being told that, like, yes, your intuition, follow it, like listen to it. Like, it's important to hear that from people who are, PhDs and super cool and have a lot of like letters after their names, like Dr. J. But yeah, so I think that's huge. Shout out my supervisor. She's awesome. She was a TW professor herself.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Represent everybody from TW.
She's awesome.
Yeah. So trusting your intuition, but also that if you have questions or if there's something you're stumped on, like you said, having that support group and being able to talk to professors, peers, anyone at your internship site, like at Connections, and just being able to lean on people when you need to.
Ooh, I think that's also been something that's really big for me. Case consultation and just like talking about your day sometimes, like really leaning on one another. Really, really not being shy about asking the questions that you need, because at the end of the day, like, yes, it's for you, but it's really for your clients, right? Like, at the end of the day, you're really like learning and, finding new techniques or, using different psychoed skills or whatever the case is. Like, you're doing that for you, but you're also doing it really for like your clients. Like, you're wanting them to get the best care that they can possibly get. And, there's different ways to be doing things. There's better ways sometimes, and you learn as you go along. I talk to Jesse all the time about like psychoed stuff, and he has this really cool curriculum thing that he does. Very, very cool. But that's just an example. Like talking, and I'll go to Nicole all the time and case consult with her, because it's just important to know that you are doing. And oftentimes she'll be like, yeah, like that's cool, that works. But it's really important, like being, especially like early on right now, just kind of being like validated that like, oh yeah, like that works. Or, hey, maybe like try this because this has worked for me in the past and stuff like that.
And it always helps to get a different input, like you said. And at Texas Women's, they really drill that into us of showing however many videos a semester and everyone critiquing it. Because whenever I've talked to other grad students that are in other programs at different schools, they're like, what? Yeah. Like, you have to show 3 videos a semester and the whole class critiques it and tells you what you did right, what you could have done better. And I'm like, yep, sure do.
Like, I remember my face used to turn like really hot and red for like other people, like when they would like have to present. I mean, for myself.
So you weren't nervous for yourself. You were nervous for others.
I mean,
because you're the best.
False. No, but like it's so wild. You're in that phase right now. You're like presenting videos.
Yes. You're like,
ooh, my face is turning off.
You're like, I'm sorry for you that you're going through that. Yeah, it's rough, but it's fine. I'm learning a lot, and a lot of my peers are in completely different internship settings. So we're learning so much from each other of, like you were saying, some interns that are at private practice settings, when I talk about some of the acuity stuff with PHP, IOP, they're like, what? Or they just haven't experienced that. And it is really great experience to have that as an intern.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And whenever you picked to be an intern at PHP IOP, what led you to do that?
I think the way that it was, I mean, what we've talked about, right? Like being able to find a place where I think I had just come off of group therapy at the time. And so we often don't see that either. Like if you're going to like a private practice or something like that. So I think that's what appealed to me a lot is the variety of population that was there. Also, I think the cool thing about it was you can always make it your own. Like the way that you run group, there's not really like this is the how-to of doing it. It's really about you and what speaks to you and what you think works.
Yeah.
Really meeting them where they're at, you know? So I think that was like a big appeal to me is there's group setting, there's individual, there's, you know, there's a wide variety of what you can kind of do when you're at a PHP,
Yeah.
As an intern.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that, being able to make it your own therapeutic space and doing what you have experience in to be able to best help the patients.
And I think it also does a really good job of like kind of all around giving you the experience of what's out there. You know, it's not everything and it's not all the things that you're going to ever experience, but it does a really good job of like giving you the population and the kinds of things that you will see when it comes to like DSM stuff. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And moving forward for you, if you do, are there goals that you have for yourself or other therapists that you've learned a lot for since you're so early in your career, things that you want to do in the future?
I covered Jesse's group for 1 week, and that was awesome. I learned a lot from his podcast. I listened to his podcast before I did his group because I was like, why not?
Yes.
And there were some really insightful things in there. I learned a lot, and you know, talking all the time with him. Also, like, I think trauma is really interesting to me. I think I do the general mental health group, and I really enjoy it. But I think a lot of the reasons and a lot of the things that, you know, come up are related to trauma. And so really making sure that I'm doing the best that I can be doing for, you know, my clients and just like informing myself and learning more about that. So I would like to be specialized in that. And also going forward, I want to be more multiculturally competent, like in the room and just like kind of doing trainings on that, stuff like that.
I love to hear that because one thing that's great but also intimidating about becoming a counselor is that you never stop learning. So it's like that's exciting because it's never boring, but it's also scary because it's like, how can I ever be confident in this when you never can learn everything that there is to learn? So that's a great answer.
Yeah, but I mean, like what you bring, someone else might not bring the same energy that you bring in something. So even if like you're always learning, like there's always something that you're offering that's like really awesome for the clients that maybe they wouldn't have got if you were not in the room with them. So it's really cool. Yes, we're always learning.
Yeah.
But and also like when you get in the field, you'll get it. Like something will, you know, call your passion and you'll figure it out. Like it's pretty easy.
I'm glad that you say that because even right now, it seems like there's a lot of pressure of people asking, what's your specialty or what do you definitely want to do? And I'm like, I'm just figuring out how to be the best counselor I can. Like, I think there are things that I'm maybe not as interested in, but for a specialty, I'm like, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out how to be the best confident counselor I can at the moment.
I was literally the same. I was like, I couldn't tell you like a specialty. Like I would have to like work with all of the specialties and then figure out like where I'm most effective or like what works the best, you know. But no, like you'll get it. You're really smart, Lauren. You'll get it.
Oh my gosh, thank you. So assuring. Well, thank you so much, Javeria, for your time today. It was so easy to talk to you. I feel like we were talking for 5 minutes and we're already wrapping up on our time. Dang. But before we end, is there a message that you want to share since you are so interested in helping interns and graduate students like me? Is there a message that you would like to share of anything that you've learned?
I think just working on yourself is also very important while like working with others, just to make sure, and I'm kind of going into like stuff that we would probably talk about in a support group, but like literally making sure that like you're okay also. Like taking care of yourself is very important. But yeah, doing that, making sure that you have a good support system around you, and just be authentic, be real to yourself, keep it real to others, keep it real with yourself,
Keep it real. You heard it here first. Now, thank you so much, Javeria. I just thank you for everything that you're doing, and I'm really excited to join the intern support group. So
Yay.
coming soon. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Connections Chat podcast. Be sure to follow our podcast on your platform of choice to receive updates on our latest episodes. As our community is growing, we would appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave a review. If this episode resonated with you, please share and start the conversation with your network or support system. And together, we continue to break through the stigma surrounding mental illness.